Good afternoon, everybody. This is Delisa Medlin, Director of Sales, and I have the honor of welcoming you to the 8th episode of Top Builders webinar series. Today's topic is how effective funnel management increases sales and profitability. We have very exciting information to share with you today, but before I turn it over to Dave, our speaker, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We're using GoToWebinar. All attendees are in listen-only mode. However, we encourage you to enter your questions in the GoToWebinar console at any time, and they'll be addressed at the end of the webinar. If you would like handouts or presentations, they're available in the console as well. The GoToMeeting console can also be minimized by clicking the red arrow button. And just note that this webinar is being recorded, and we will follow up with you after the webinar to provide links to the webinar series as well as the handouts and presentations. Thank you so much for joining us. Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Delisa. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So thank you everybody for attending, and also for the folks that registered who will hear this recording later. We have a kind of a bet every time we start one of these webinars on the over-under, and I'm happy to say I lost because I bet a certain number, and we have more attendees, actually quite a few more attendees than my guess was. So that's fantastic. So let's go ahead and jump in. Let's go ahead and start with the standard agenda that we have every week. So if you've attended our webinars in the past, you'll know we follow the same format every week, and that way you know what to expect and how the presentation flows. Also, we try to keep it to about 35 minutes. Sometimes that's challenging depending on questions, but we're going to shoot for 35 minutes here today, including the introductions and the Q&A. Okay, so we'll start with the webinar series update. We're going to talk a little bit about us. I know there's some folks on the phone or on the webinar that are not current customers with us, so you don't know that much about us yet. We'll do a quick poll question. Typically today we're not going to do a poll question. It's not really appropriate for the topic, so we'll skip that. We'll cover the topic background, we'll cover the topic itself, and then we'll show you some examples. Keep in mind that when we do these webinars, we have to keep it sort of high level and somewhat generic. We do use specific and real world examples in our webinars, but it's hard to get into too much detail because it's not a one size fits all, but the concept is a one size fits all. And also for those of you who haven't attended our webinars in the past, we try to make our webinars authentic, so to speak. It's not scripted. It's not necessarily, overproduced or over rehearsed. We try to talk to you guys from our experiences. We try to talk to you guys from the feedback that we've gotten from our customers, and just share our knowledge and our best practices with you in a very authentic way. So I hope you can appreciate that, and I hope that comes across that way as well. Okay, so we'll jump into the webinar series update. So we're covering a best practices topic today. We try to rotate between a general topic, a feature spotlight, and an educational topic. Sometimes it doesn't work out exactly that way, especially since we had spring break, we had a freeze here in Houston, and some other things. So we kind of juggled things up a bit. We're going to cover an educational or a best practices topic today. It's on funnel management. And then what we're trying to do is trying to build on the webinar. So what we're doing is we're going to introduce a topic, but then we're going to follow up with a related or a topic that really builds on a topic that we've already done. And for example, we're talking about funnel management today and funnel management best practices for construction companies. But then next week, we may focus on analytics and reporting around your funnel, your sales funnel. So we're trying to provide some continuity, if that makes sense, between the topics. And I hope we're doing that. So we're doing the best we can. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's talk a little bit about Top Builder. I do see, it's hard to see everybody on the list, but there are people that are not customers of us yet. So I think it's important for you guys to know that when we talk about these things, we talk about best practices, we talk about our services, it comes from real experiences. I mean, Top Builder's been around since 2008, but we've been around, quite frankly, for quite a while. And our company does have real world experience in construction and mechanical engineering. Some of us have owned some of us have been on crews, myself included. I've been on a roofing crew. I've been on a construction crew as a mechanical engineer. We've been involved in the building material supply industry and certainly CRM. And so we're doing this for hundreds of builders in the US and Canada. And a lot of what we're talking about today are things we've learned from our customers and learned from our experiences. So I hope you can benefit from that. Okay, so we're going to skip this slide. If anybody wants to see these things, you'll get the slides tomorrow, actually. And we're going to skip the poll question for this week since it's not really appropriate for this topic. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the topic itself. Why are we talking about this and why is this important? Funnel management, I believe, doesn't get enough credit. I think a lot of companies, whether you're a construction company or any company, thinks of the sales funnel as really just tracking your leads through the process, okay? And it certainly does that. Managing your funnel is an important part of sales. It's an important part of, moving a prospect through the process to get them to close. But it's much more than that when you really, really look at it in the way we're going to describe it to you today. So we're going to talk to you about why funnel management is so important to your business, not just sales. We're going to talk about some best practices and what it takes to create an effective funnel or funnel management process. And we're going to speak to that in terms of a construction company. We're going to talk about how to set up your funnel. And we're going to speak a little bit generic, but we are going to use real examples when we talk about how to define your funnel, how to set up the funnel process, and the management tools involved in managing your funnel. Again, we're talking about construction companies here. We're not talking about anything else. Keep in mind, however, everybody, we do this ourselves. We live this stuff. We breathe this stuff. We do exactly what we're describing to you today so we can speak to it. And we've been doing it internally at Top Builder for years. And so we can speak to it. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so why do we care? All right, why do we care about the sales funnel? And why is the whole concept of funnel management so important? Okay. Again, traditionally, funnel management has been thought of, I guess, in general as, managing your leads, moving them from one step to another, hopefully moving them to a one sale or a closed sale. But really, when you peel the onion back a little bit here, what we're talking about is allowing your company and your teams within your company, your sales teams, your marketing teams, even your operational teams, your management teams, to really monitor the overall performance of your company and your sales and marketing programs. So if you look at your funnel as a way of defining, predicting what your sales and marketing should look like to reach your goals, monitoring that and tying them back to your company goals, you can see why funnel management is so important, okay? I use the word control a lot when I'm talking about this, but it is true that control is very important when it comes to sales and marketing, because sometimes, man, it feels like there's no control. You're doing marketing and you're hoping it works out. And I'm not speaking for you guys, I'm speaking in general. So you're marketing and hopefully you get qualified leads. You're selling and you hope to convert those leads to a sale. But it's not controlled, it's not monitored. And when you put a good funnel management process in place, you're tying everything back to a goal, you're tracking it, you're monitoring it, and you can adapt and grow and change, which to me means control of your marketing and your sales processes and even operations. Okay, and we're going to talk about some of this, some of these examples in a second. All right. It also will help you identify and really zero down on areas of improvement. If you look at bullet point number 3 here, you're zooming in on an area, let's call it a pain point, that just doesn't work. And you'll be able to see, if I don't fix this, I'm not going to reach my goals. So it identifies areas of improvement. It also allows you to effectively predict and forecast sales and resource requirements. And since we are in construction, we're talking about managing our crews, hiring folks, scheduling trades, being able to get in front of the hiring process. I'm not as familiar with the procurement process, like, getting equipment, materials, and things like that, but it certainly helps predict and forecast what's needed. Yeah, with pretty good reliability as well. Also, of course, you're able to clearly identify what's going on. If we're looking at bullet point number 5 here, with each one of your opportunities, and then maybe what's holding them up, what's standing in their way of moving forward, things like that. And then also, you want to be able to be more efficient, be more productive. Find areas that are just not as efficient as they should be, and we've got some examples here. It may be the bidding process, it may be the estimating process, it may be the follow-up process, it may be the quoting process, it could be the forecasting process. All of these things are pain points. Well, were pain points for our customers that we've been able to solve with a good funnel management program. Okay. And also, you're able to be proactive. And what I mean by proactive is nobody wants to get to the end of the quarter, or nobody wants to get to the end of the year and figure out that you missed your sales goal. Okay. Nobody wants that. And this allows you to get ahead of that and act before it's too late. And I'll explain in my examples. Okay. So let's go on to the next slide, which is what makes a funnel management program or process, whatever you want to call it, effective. Okay, it literally, this makes sense and this may be obvious, but it begins with defining the funnel and defining it with a very specific purpose. And those are 2 things primarily. You're gonna set up your funnel to make sure you're tracking the performance of your sales and marketing goals, okay? And that way you can monitor what comes into the funnel, because that's your marketing. Your marketing is generating the top probably 2 layers of the funnel, okay? And then also being able to measure how you're moving prospects through the funnel and in a predictable way to reach a sales goal. Okay, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out, okay, what are those key phases, and I've put that in parentheses next to 1B there, that I need to pay attention to make sure I'm monitoring my processes and I'm able to reach my goals. Okay, and again, I've got examples in about 2 slides. Okay, now also part of this is, yes, you want to understand how you want to track your goals when you're defining your funnel, but you also want to define activity through the funnel. Next steps or workflow. You can use all these fancy terms, or automation. A lot of people like to use that word, but really it's what activities take place as you go through the funnel. So as you define your funnel, you're looking for key activities. Following up on a bid, as an example, or following up on a new bid opportunity are good examples. And then what happens, let's say if you get a qualified bid opportunity, what are the next steps? Okay. And if you don't have that phase defined in your funnel, well, then how can you define the next steps once you hit that phase? Well, you can't. Okay. And so it's very key to define how you want to act on each phase of the funnel, or what you want your activities to be, and how are you measuring the effectiveness of your business. Okay, very good. Now, what makes a funnel management program effective is documenting and communicating. I talk about this in almost every webinar. It doesn't matter if you have a really awesome funnel defined with next steps, with key performance indicators, all of these things. But if you don't document that, define what each step in the funnel means, how do you qualify for each phase of the funnel? What are the activities that are triggered by each step in the funnel? Well, it ain't gonna work, okay? You have to communicate that, okay, to your teams, and you need to document it. And I'm looking at the attendee list right now, and I see some people on here that are doing that and are doing that very well. And so they know that this stuff works, and that's fantastic. You need to develop your toolbox. Okay, how are we going to monitor these things? Really, I mean, that's just a list of reports or metrics or analytics that goes on your dashboard. Okay, but you need to identify how are you going to report these things and monitor these things. And I've got about 3 or 4 examples that I'm going to show you today, but there's hundreds of them. And then what we're going to talk about is adjust as you need to. And really, you're going to adjust your marketing, your sales, maybe even your metrics if you need to, but do it quick before it gets too late. And what we recommend, and we're going to talk about this, on this slide, I'll wait. But bullet point number 6 is we recommend reviewing these funnel definitions and your progress weekly. No more than weekly, no less than weekly. Weekly is perfect, okay? And we do it ourselves. Okay, so this is the why, this is the what, and again, you're gonna get these slides. Now this is the how, okay? The how starts from the bottom of the funnel, okay? And the bottom of the funnel is your sales, okay? So at the bottom of the funnel, you're going to say, how many sales do I need? You can reflect this in numbers of sales or dollar amounts. Typically, you know the size of your jobs, and you can average it out and come up with a number. But whatever you're doing, you need to be reasonable. It needs to be a reasonable number. You can't throw some number out and say, we're going to do this. We're going to get these many new construction jobs this year, or we're going to get this many new service contracts a year. If it's not reasonable, it ain't going to work. So we have a professional services team that you can engage with that will help you get to these numbers. We're doing it concurrently right now for half of a dozen companies actually right now. And we're helping them to determine what the bottom of their funnel looks like, okay? And then what you do is you work backwards from there. And you work backwards using historical conversion rates from your company. Hopefully, we have those in your CRM, or we'll pull those from some reports that you have on your data. We'll analyze that and come up with some conversion rates through the key stages of your funnel. We also can pull industry standards, and candidly, common sense works as well. You know your business, and you may say, well, look, if I submit 100 bids, I'm going to get about 30% of them or 40%. You can come up with a number that makes sense. We'll use that number to track your KPIs or your performance, and then you monitor it. And if it turns out that doesn't make sense, okay, then you change it or you adapt or you adjust, okay? And that's why we recommend you meet weekly, because If you don't, then you may find out monthly, quarterly that your numbers aren't reasonable. Okay. And then also part of funnel management does get into more of the tactical side of sales. As I move somebody through my funnel, what key data points do I want to track? We recommend between around 7, I have an example here, around 7 key data points, okay? But if you get too many, then your team's not going to keep up with that data. If you get too few, well, you're missing important key pieces of information. So you try to find the sweet spot. And again, you adjust if you need to. Now, once you come up with your phases and you come up with your goals, you're going to use that to extrapolate into weekly, monthly, and quarterly targets. Now, seasonality does make a difference in construction, of course. So you got to be careful with that when you're monitoring weekly sales or weekly bid opportunities. But you know your business is better than we do in the seasonality of it. And of course, it depends on where you're located. I mean, we're in Houston, and they build year round here, but in the Northeast, the Northwest, not so much. So you got to keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go into a couple more suggestions for the how. What we want to make sure that we're doing is when we identify the stages of our funnel is we do want to look at the sales cycle and how long each step takes. Okay, a good example is a qualified bid opportunity comes into your sales funnel. Well, if you sit on that too long, you may miss your window. And so we've had customers say, look, I want to shorten that window from 7 days to 3 days. Or once you identify a bid that you are accepting, you want to shorten that cycle tremendously, because if you're not shortening that cycle from a qualified bid opportunity to an actual bid submitted status, well, you're spending too much time doing it. That's all there is to it. Okay. And so you want to try to identify those key areas that you want to shorten and look for tools and utilities to help you with that. And then also, you always want to be able to have some sort of nurturing campaign, or some people refer to it as a keep in touch campaign. But it's a way to keep in touch with your prospects, whether you won their job or lost the job, or maybe it never materialized even into a valid bid opportunity. You want a nurturing campaign to stay in touch with them so that they know about your company and they remember you when it's time for a new job, a new service contract, or whatever it may be. I mean, it depends on your business, but we have, residential roofing repair companies, that go out and they fix roofs when a hurricane comes through. We had the freeze here in Houston and in Texas, and when somebody has a leak in their roof, they're going to call somebody quickly, and you want to make sure you're in front of them when it's time to take action. Okay, I think I beat that one up enough. So let's go into some examples. So these are real examples from real companies. So again, let's talk about building our funnel. And I've simplified the phases down to 4 here, but let's talk about this. So let's talk about the process of determining what we think our sales are going to be. This could be 100 new construction jobs a year. Maybe it's 100 new service contracts a year. It could be, I think you guys get the idea, but let's just say your goal for the year is to get 100 new service contracts. Many of our customers do a lot of new construction, but where they want to improve is converting new construction to service. Because what happens, they do the job and then they forget, or they don't follow up, or something happens. So let's just pretend like we're that company, and our goal is to get 100 new service contracts for this year. And so they know that if I'm going to get 100 service contracts a year, that you're going to work backwards through that. You're going to say, well, look, for every bid that I submit, I can convert about 30% of those to an awarded job. Okay, so if you work backwards from the bottom of the funnel to the top, that tells you you need to submit about 333 bids this year to reach your goal of 100. Okay, and then you work backwards from there and you say, well, for all the qualified requests for service or requests for quotes that I get, okay, only about 17.5% of those are actually ones I'm gonna accept. Okay, that's a small number. Maybe it's bigger than that. Hopefully it's bigger than that. But that tells you, okay, working backwards again, that I'm gonna need about 1,900 qualified bid requests to reach my goal of 100 sales. Okay, and then of course we go backwards from there and we say for every bid request that we get, half of them actually are legit. They're looking for the service we provide, whatever your criteria is. So that brings you up to 3,810 bid requests for the year. Okay. Now you have to define what does it mean to have a qualified bid request, an RFQ, and you don't move them into that phase until they meet that criteria. And then same with accepting a bid, and then same with a sale, of course. But if you extrapolate this out to from an annual goal to a weekly goal, I mean, what it boils down to is I want 2 sales a week. Okay, fantastic. So you're monitoring 2 sales a week, which should tell you in your funnel, I need about 76 bid requests a week if I'm going to convert them at this rate. Now you've got to look at the rates as well and monitor the rates because they may be better or worse. And if you think something is wrong there, then take some action. For example, let's say a lot of your bid requests are not turning into qualified bids. They're not legit. They're looking for something you don't do or in a territory that you don't cover. It could be a lot of reasons. It's hard for me to say because every business is different, but you've got to look at that and say, well, wait a minute. These are coming in from our website or from our marketing campaigns or social media or something, and they're not legit. Why? Well, maybe your campaigns are covering territories that you don't cover or something. And so you got to look at that and try to narrow that down and fix that problem so that you're actually getting legitimate qualified leads. Okay. And so here is an example, and this doesn't match up exactly with what I was just showing you here. I'm only showing you 3 phases because I didn't have data at the very top of the funnel to show you from this customer. But this is a trend for your funnel, and this is week to week. Okay, so you're looking at getting a certain number of leads per week, week over week, and you're seeing if it's matching your goal of 76 requests, 38 qualified requests a week, and you're comparing it to that to see, are we getting there, or are we trending up, or are we trending down? I mean, now you can go back in time, okay, and compare this to prior years, prior quarters, prior months, and that will allow you to arrive at these numbers, okay, that you use to build your funnel. I hope this is making sense. Okay, so now another example of a metric, and I had to blank out the jobs here, so to protect the innocent here. But when we're looking at shortening the time frame that we're responding to bid opportunities, this is an example of an aging report that you can look at to say, am I getting my bid opportunities, and are they moving into a bid submitted status in that 3 days? Remember, we said we want to go from 7 days down to 3 days. We want to be more efficient at doing our bids. So I'm looking at that right here, and I'm looking at the column where we have a new bid opportunity or a qualified bid opportunity, and I'm looking at how long it takes. Now, this is a bit all over the place, but you can see that if I'm consistently below the 7 days, or if I'm consistently within that 3-day window, well, then I'm responding pretty effectively to my bid opportunities, and they're not getting I'm able to efficiently understand the bid, prepare my estimate, and submit the bid in a fair and a reasonable amount of time. Okay, and a lot of people will track that number back to the fact that they're getting 30 bid opportunities a week, and traditionally they can only respond to 2 or 3, maybe 5 of those. They really want to be able to respond to many more, and that way, if they shorten their bid cycle, okay, they can respond to many more bids. And so that's what they're trying to reach, and they're monitoring that here with these reports. Okay, and again, these are the steps in the sales cycle that we're monitoring. Okay, now let's go into the key data. Okay, now this is sort of I guess the sweet spot, I would call it, on keeping up with what data do I expect my team to maintain. Okay, obviously you need to keep up with the status, and when a lead comes in, your team needs to change the status and move them into the phase that is appropriate or that they qualify them for as soon as possible. So you're tracking the status, you understand where they are, and most importantly, the status change is going to trigger the next step, which is number 4. So if you move from a new bid opportunity to a qualified bid opportunity, okay, you change the status, that should trigger activity that alerts your estimators, alerts your project managers, and they start working on that bid because it's now a qualified bid opportunity. You move them into that status, and then the next steps in the workflow gets triggered from there. I always say to everybody, describe where are you in the process with this customer. The status will tell you one thing, the next step will tell you something, the history will tell you something. But unfortunately, you kind of have to dig to understand where you are with that prospect. But your management teams and your owners and even your project managers can quickly understand where you are with each one of your opportunities if you just describe in a sentence or less in the description what's going on with this prospect, okay? And that saves literally several meetings that could take hours, and it limits that to maybe 1 or 2 people that can go through and get a snapshot of what's going on. It eliminates some status reports. It eliminates for our home builders traffic reports. It really makes things a lot easier on everybody if you just describe where we are with them. Of course, tracking the last activity, the next steps, any objections or barriers to the deal. What's stopping them? Is it a budget issue? Is it, it could be anything. But describe in a couple words what's blocking this sale from moving forward, okay? And that way somebody can come along and say, well, look, we can help with that, or it's all over the place. But make sure you're documenting that. Document when the decision is supposed to be made, and then in the case of construction, since this is construction software, what is the bid due date? Always keep up with that. And the system, the CRM, will tell you and alert you when bids are due, and we'll even put it on your calendar and remind you when bids are due. Obviously, keeping up with keynotes, conversations is very important, and make sure you track the sources of your leads. A lot of construction companies aren't necessarily getting leads online or from their website, but try to break down your leads in as much detail as to where they're coming from, and try there's tons of reports around this to analyze where your leads are coming from and how they're converting. And obviously that's part of funnel management as well. And if you're not getting leads from existing customers, and you should be, that should show up on your reports. Especially when you're looking at things like service. Okay, so that's the key data that you want to track. Okay, now this is a fun one. Weekly reviews. What would my weekly reviews look like? Okay, so this is a real report and a real example of a weekly review process. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take those goals that we developed already, and you're going to identify what is the overall goal for the year, okay? And then you're going to track your progress against that goal. And so you'll say, okay, well, if I need 100 deals this year, then I should have closed 27 deals already. Okay, well, I haven't. I've only closed 11. Why? Okay, why is that? Well, you can see the very top of the funnel is hurting you. By now, you should have had 1,026 bid opportunities, okay? And you haven't. You've only gotten 723. So your problem in this example is in the very top of the funnel. Your sales funnel is broken right now because you're not getting enough leads into the funnel. So what do you do about that? Well, depending on the type of work you do, depending on the business that you're in, that's gonna vary. But you've got to fix that first, because you're obviously not getting enough bid opportunities to hit your goal. So what does that mean? Does that mean more marketing? Does that mean pay-per-click? Does that mean trade shows? Does that mean somebody gets on the phone and starts calling existing customers to say, hey, we've got, we do service, or whatever. You've got to get the top of the funnel fixed, or you're not going to hit your goal. But do this every week, and then make sure that you're staying on track. Okay, obviously the qualified bid opportunities is red because you're not getting enough bid opportunities, and you're also not converting. If you can see the red number where it says 32.2%, you're not converting the opportunities you're getting to qualified bid opportunities. Why is that? Again, you need to make sure that the opportunities that you're getting are qualified. You should be converting at least 50% of them historically, and you're not. Well, why is that? Maybe we need to fix our messaging or the content on our website or something. Okay? And so you can look at this, you can compare these phases of your funnel to where you should be at this point in the process, or 14 weeks into the year, and then go fix it. We do the same. We're not selling jobs, but we're selling, and we know exactly how many qualified opportunities we should get so we can hit our goal for the year. And we also know how we should convert them. And that's part of funnel management. Okay, so that's very, very important. All right, so that is it, and I was 2 minutes overdue. Delisa, do we have questions?
No questions at this time.
All right, well, fantastic. Again, we're gonna have a recording out to you guys tomorrow. I try to shoot for around lunchtime. And it will include a link to the slides. It will include a link to the recording. And then it'll come from me. It'll come from Top Builder, but it'll go through my Outlook. And then so if you reply to this recording that we're sending out tomorrow, I will get it. Also, if you want to learn information from us, or you want to engage in our professional services to help you with this process, you can fill out a demo request form. There's a button on the email, or you can contact us on our website. So I hope this helped you guys. Again, I think next webinar will be on focusing more on the reporting side of funnel management. Not 100% sure at this point, but we'll definitely have that here pretty soon. Okay, thank you guys.